The last has definitely not been heard about the attacks on Edo State Governor Mr. Godwin Obaseki and other top dignitaries at the convocation of Edo State University on Saturday. This is because the APC chairman, Mr. Oshiomhole, who was fingered in the attacks, has now come out to say that the deputy governor of the state, Mr. Philip Shuaibu, should be held responsible for the fracas at the institution. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, Mr. Oshiomhole, who apologized over the incident, asked the governor of Edo State to call his deputy to order. The APC national chairman also says that he has no issue with the governor, explaining how he had done his best in reconciling Mr. Obaseki with aggrieved stakeholders in the state.
Now, what triggered yesterday's event was this, from our findings. Having laid siege at the gate to the university by these talks and the tear gassing that followed, everywhere in the community was already charged. All able-bodied men and women had gathered in various locations, wondering what is going on. And as the governor's entourage was driving in a bus to my house, these bike riders that the deputy governor arranged, we also followed them in the entourage. And so all of this explained the reaction of those youth. And from what they told me, the two of the people that I had reported to the police over the attack at my residence in Benin were also in that bus, and they could see them. My purpose this afternoon or this evening is simply to again apologize to all those who were embarrassed, but just to suggest to the governor that, as I told him in a text message, we do not need to import thugs. We do not need thugs. He has to prevail on his deputy, who seems to have a higher propensity for violence, to change his ways. These I have already sent to him.
Away from politics, the Nigerian Customs Service says all Nigerian land borders will remain partially closed and that no date has been fixed for their reopening. The Customs, in a statement by its spokesman, insists that this clarification is necessary based on the news in some sections of the media to the effect that the agency has set January the 31st, 2020 as date for the reopening of the borders, which were closed in August. According to the statement, the internal memo referred to did not set any date for the reopening of the borders. He noted that the memo was only referring to the terminal date of the Joint Security Swift response, which was inaugurated to enforce the closures. However, the service notes that a few strategic objectives are yet to be achieved, necessitating the extension. The federal government had on October the 14th ordered the closure of all land borders with neighboring countries after earlier closing borders with its western neighbor, the Republic of Benin, in August of 2019. On security matters, the Nigerian Air Force reports that its fighter planes have destroyed an Islamic State of West African province, ISWAP, hideout at Arena Siki on the fringes of the Lake Chad in the northern part of Borno State. A statement from the Air Force spokesman explains that the airstrikes were carried out between Friday and Saturday following intelligence reports that the insurgents were using the settlement as a staging area to launch attacks on security forces. He says the airstrike on Friday, November the 1st, was initiated after an Air Force surveillance and reconnaissance mission spotted ISWAP vehicles under some trees in the area. Fighter jets of the Operation Lafia Dole Air Task Force have attacked the location, immobilizing the vehicles, while a follow-up attack was launched on Saturday after significant activity was observed in another part of the settlement. The attack aircraft detailed to engage the identified areas, destroying some of the terrorist structures, killing several fighters. 2 persons have died in a successful rescue attempt by the police command in Oyo State, including a leader of the vigilante group in Igbora. Mr. Tajuddin Ayonwale was killed when the police, backed by vigilantes, intercepted the abductors of a local cattle herder and rescued him following a gun battle in which one of the kidnappers died. The Commissioner of Police in Oyo State, Shina Olukolu, who conveyed the Inspector General's condolences, asked security outfits not to relent in the fight against kidnapping and banditry. Our correspondent, Bukola Oriwo, reports.
But for this lonely calf and virtually empty shed, law enforcement agents meet a deserted camp when they visit this site located in the suburbs of Erua in the Ibarapa axis of your state. This is where Mr. Adams rests every day after grazing his cattle before traveling back to Igbora, where he lives. On October the 29th, he left this camp but did not make it home. He was abducted around 8 p.m. and forced to walk a distance of about 42 kilometers through the dense forests. However, his abductors ran out of luck as the police, assisted by the vigilantes, caught up with them and rescued the victim unhurt after a gun battle. But it came with a steep price. The leader of the local vigilante group, Mr. Tajuddin Anyawali, was killed during the exchange of gunfire.
In the crossfire, aside from Tajuddin Anyawali that lost his life, one of the kidnappers was also killed. His gun was recovered.
The victim narrates his ordeal as best as he could, grateful to be alive.
I
saw a torchlight flashing at me with some people shouting, "Stop, stop." There were 5 of them. I tried to maneuver, but they eventually caught up with me. As I fell off my bike, they started tying me up with a rope and marched me through the forest. We nearly got into Ogun State when I started hearing gunshots. It continued for a while, then my abductors left me and I scampered for safety.
The IGP sent his condolences through the Oyo State Police Commissioner to the entire state with a message not to relent.
And we reassure the family and pray for the repose of the soul of the gallant departed soul of Tajuddin Anyawali. The people of Ibarapa, I want to urge them not to despair, not to lose hope, and the VGN, that is the Vigilante Services, the hunters and the community members that have been working in synergy with the Nigerian Police Force in the spirit of community policing, also not to despair, to continue to assist and work with the police, because together we can overcome the evil deeds and evil acts of the minority within us.
As the Yuletide period approaches, the police warn that the onslaught against crime will heighten across the state. Bukola Oriowo, Channels Television News.
Well, we're now being joined on the news at 10 by retired Major General Cecil Sakaigbe, who's a security consultant, to take a look at the security situation in the country and some of the efforts being made to address the problem. Glad you could join us. Good evening. Let's start from that unfortunate, sad incident in Oyo State where 2 persons, including a security operative, lost their lives in the bid to rescue a kidnapped victim. I mean, what do you think, why do you think it appears that these crimes have persisted in spite of some of the measures that have been taken to overcome them?
Well, thank you for having me. Like we always said, we should not start to treat the symptoms of this criminality, but we should look at the main causes of this criminality. And I think some here before, I have come out to say that there are 3 causative factors that we must consider if we have to address this thing holistically. First of all, you have to look at the effect of drugs and, the totality of what happened to these people that are taking these drugs that precipitate their actions, that lost their reasoning, and they take laws into their hands without fear of repercussion. 2, you have to look at the proliferation of arms, small arms and light weapons, which are these agents of death. 3, the lack of governance in some of these areas also precipitated this crisis. Unfortunately, the police, that is the lead agency in international security operations, are not well funded. They have a lot of limitations, in the execution of their task. So we must address this holistically, and it's time for conversation. It's now. Equip the police, give them what it takes to do their jobs, so that at the end of the day, there will be a positive effect in all the operations that they carry out. At the end of the day, the citizenry will be able to sleep with their eyes closed, that something is being done for their protection.
You would agree that perhaps assisting the police is also the Nigerian army. We've seen security agencies, particularly the Nigerian army, come up with different code names for some of the operations, like Python Dance, Operation Crocodile Smile, Puff Adder, the latest Operation Cat Race. I mean, they're saying that is targeted at kidnappers. Are you convinced that these strategies are working? I mean, is there any difference between the mode of operations, or is it just name changing?
It's not name changing. The Nigerian Army has come in to assist the civil authority under the platform of Section 217, subsection C of the Nigeria Constitution 1999 as amended. So they have come in to assist the civil police and to restore law and order. This is very clear. But the essential missing link is that there must be interagency cooperation to know that at the end of the day, we are working together towards the same goal. The army cannot work in isolation. The army needs support. Even everybody has to support the military and the police in the execution of this task, because security is everybody's business. And that's why the popular axiom that when you say something, you say something.
And let's not forget the help that the vigilante services are also rendering, like the case in Oyo. Many government officials have ascribed some of these crimes on cross-border activities. In fact, the CBN governor went as far as saying that if the borders remain closed for 2 years, the nation will be rid of challenges like kidnapping, insurgency, banditry, and so on. I mean, do you agree with these arguments?
Well, I do not know the empirical evidence to support that. All I know is that when there is lack of governance in these territories, what you have to do is, have to look at how to check the menace that follow. That is why, in the counter-terrorist strategies, they also stress that the first principle, or the pillar number one, is to prevent the factors that make these things happen. 2, there will be capacity building for people to be able to arrest this. And 3, there must be a balance between military necessity and fundamental human rights. Closing the borders, economic angle, I will understand. But to say that it's one size fits all for security calculations, I think it's a suspect. You must have to do what you have to do to put your ass together to check the security menace in totality.
All right, retired Major General Sekaibe, we'd like to appreciate your time for joining us on the News at 10.